by yourself saying we're going to invest in HR, it means that people have become a priority for you, and I think that says tenfold over the business that you're with. Instead of paying me, I sort of made this joke earlier. You could have went and just sort of thought, right, I'll just buy a car, I'll buy a nice piece of jewelry, I'll go and buy a house, but you didn't. You decided to invest in the business and put people at the heart of what you're doing. And if we get the people element right, you are growing your company in the right direction.
Guys, Matt Haycox here, and for once, I will not be starting one of these by saying it's Matt Haycox and welcome to the Matt Haycox Show, because this isn't the Matt Haycox Show. This is my new format podcast. This is the HR Zone. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the plan in a minute, but I am joined by a very nervous, very fidgety in the background, Kelly McGowan, who is
Hi.
hey Kelly, who is my head of people, head of human resources, based over back in the UK. Been with me for 2 or 3 months now, and I was looking for an idea for some new content for a new podcast, to add into my repertoire this year. And I thought that bringing HR to the kind of forefront of the things I talk about will be very beneficial for me, because it helps me, I guess, get clarity on my story and my journey, but also beneficial for you guys as SME business owners, or wannabe SME business owners, because HR, I think, is probably the one thing that is so necessary, but so neglected at the same time. And I say that from a position of total guilt myself. For years and years in all my businesses, I've never given HR the budget and the consideration it's needed. And once I realised what a mistake I've been making, I haven't just realised. I mean, I have always known it for a long time, and just for whatever reason, never gotten around to prioritising it, never gotten around to sourcing it. But finally bit the bullet last year, because not getting HR right, I believe, and this is my layman's talk on it, and we're going to, obviously get busy with Kelly in a minute, but I believe it's so expensive to not get it right. And I talk to a lot of other business owners, particularly smaller business owners, who don't believe they need it, or don't believe that those costs apply to them. And for me, it's just delusional, because the cost of hiring, the cost of not getting full productivity out of someone, followed by the cost of them firing, having to rehire and start that process all over again. I mean, I'm throwing a guess number out there, but for me, it's got to be 20-30% plus of somebody's salary. Now, even if we're talking, lower salaries, 30, 40, 45 grand type salaries, that's still 10, 15, 20 grand of cost, getting it wrong. And believe me, I've got it wrong many, many times. And I know I'm not alone. So I have bitten the bullet, because I think that this HR will not be a cost. It will be an investment. It will, save us money in pounds and pence terms, because, we will hire better, we will fire less. And with all the cuddling in the middle, because HR, I guess, is part cuddle, we will get better productivity out of staff across the group, and therefore ultimately HR will pay for itself many times over. So that's why I'm doing it. But I want to share that journey with you guys. So the format for this podcast really is going to be bringing up a new HR related topic each week, discussing it in depth with Kelly, and maybe bringing in a few specific examples of what's going on in our organisations as well, obviously without breaching too many confidential matters. But without further ado, Kelly, welcome. I'm sure you're not as nervous now. Now we're 3 minutes in. You've seen how easy this is. You're going to have to get used to it each week. But just tell us a little bit about you anyway, just so we can set the scene for future weeks and this. What's your HR story? Did you wake up as a little baby dreaming of a career in HR, giving cuddles and firing letters at the same time?
Oh, absolutely. No, I think my childhood ambition, I wanted to own and run a sweet shop. So, I mean, I'm a firm believer that jobs find people. And, I took the typical educational route that your parents expect, which was you do A levels, you go to uni, and I studied languages, so French, Spanish, German, a bit of Latin, and I thought, let's be a teacher. Didn't really want to do that. So retail found me, and that led to HR. And I continued my career because I thought, you know what, I really enjoy it. And I think when you enjoy it, you become really good at stuff. And I've had the opportunity to work for over 25 years in a HR function in a whole host of different roles, learning, doing lots of different stuff, working in different environments, from in logistics, manufacturing, head office roles, in retail stores. So I think it's been quite an exciting journey, and I felt really ready for a change, to step away from corporate and join your group.
Tell me, and I've never asked you this question before, but it just made me think listening to it now. I mean, you prior to joining me, I mean, you've been with the same organisation for what 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Was that because they were particularly good at HR and therefore made you want to stay?
No, I think it was such a diverse group, and it was multinational, and had some good leadership during that time. That I was constantly being given stretches, different opportunities. I never really did the same job for a mass amount of time. Sort of in the latter years, I ended up being a bit of a fixer. So if there was a particularly something that was broken, I would go in, and because I had that experience and knew the business well, I could probably bring a bit of a better fix with my business partner
But it's,
at the time.
But it's interesting what you say though, because I mean, I guess your initial answer was no, it's not because you were good at HR, but then immediately flipped on to say, you had some particularly good leadership. But I guess
Mm.
the little I know of the HR side of things, and the little more I'm learning is, I would say that HR and leadership do go hand in hand.
Absolutely, for sure. I mean, do you know what? What's really interesting is some businesses are actually saying that they don't need HR, and there's a particularly big company. I forgot. I think it was Octopus Energy, and I think some people just want to be controversial, don't they, by saying we don't need HR. Actually, HR is about the focus on people, and I think by yourself saying we're going to invest in HR, it means that people have become a priority for you, and I think that says tenfold over the business that you're with. So say for instance my previous business had devalued the entire role of HR, and I saw behavioral changes in people. People were quiet quitting. We've all heard of that. And that impacted the business, its success, its growth. And while HR was an expensive function, to devalue people, you're almost devaluing your business and affecting your culture. So, for you, instead of paying me, I sort of made this joke earlier. You could have went and just sort of thought, right, I'll just buy a car, I'll buy a nice piece of jewelry, I'll go and buy a house. But you didn't. You decided to invest in the business, and put people at the heart of what you're doing. And if we get the people element right, which is really difficult, not one person can influence that, but you are growing your company in the right direction. That's my view. And when you put people first, you really, you know, you're looking at things, and you're recognizing the way life has changed. So I remember my first ever job, and I've had a lot of job titles, as most HR people have. We were personnel officers, personnel managers, HR managers, business unit managers, people managers. fundamentally, people are at the heart of it. But 25 years ago, my priority was probably running a bit of payroll, keeping up with a bit of recruitment, very instructional training, and it was definitely all about the compliance. Now, a lot of that hasn't really changed, but the society that we live in has dictated the way the job role has evolved. And to me, I love the change. It's more exciting. We've embraced technology, so a lot of the training is done online. We just tackle things a lot more different than we used to, and HR is more instrumental in the operational side of the business and building a strategy with the line manager and heads of the groups, the departments, or the multifacets of the organisation. Because essentially, I think what a good HR person does, it builds line manager and heads of department and heads of companies capability, because they are the direct link to the people. HR aren't messiahs, are they? They can't instruct, some every person within the business. So to link with those heads of and line managers, that has to be the way that we develop that mindset of people, the growth mindset, get people ready for a journey with a trajectory that goes upwards. So
And
I suppose
obviously,
that's my view.
one of the things that I guess gives HR a bad name, if that's the word from more aggressive business owners, is oh, HR, it's the cuddly bullshit function, and I mean, as somebody who is very not cuddly and not bullshitty myself, I actually don't see HR as the cuddle and the bullshit. And I mean, I think there's a cuddle definitely involved at some point, but for me, it's as much carrot as it is stick, or as much stick as it is carrot, etc. I mean, can you put that into more articulate terms for for real business owners listening to this?
Yeah, I think if your HR is pink and fluffy, they probably are not doing the job justice for you, and they're not really serving your business right. Now, it's my belief and my opinion only that HR should be absolutely linked to the whole operation, and understand the jobs of people, the working environment, the line managers requirement, and have a really deep understanding of the business that they're trying to influence and affect. Because to some extent, one could say, I'm your conscience, because not necessarily conscience, but I'll have a different viewpoint than yourself. If you get 10 people in a room, they will all have a different view. Mine has a more laser focus to people, to compliance, to the law, because that's my specialism. So different people are good at different things. So I think if you're using HR just as this pink fluffy bit, you will lose your people, because the skill of HR, I feel, is to give the heads of and the line managers, let's call them that, the capability to lead their teams, so they are their own mini HR. Because let's not talk about, we can all read books on, I don't know, great operating models, Japanese business models, but fundamentally, people decide to work for a boss, because you can pretty much get a job anywhere these days. But what makes a job great is having a great boss, or a great leader, or a great figurehead, whatever you want to call them, because that makes you jump out of bed and come to work and do a great job. So for us to concentrate, and I know it's one of our key objectives this year, is to invest in our people, their training, and not just through things like professional accreditation, but allowing people to be the best version of themselves possible. So, and everybody's journey is different. Some people will flourish just at making those tiny steps, but if those people are making an improvement, however small, surely the business has to benefit from that. And line managers that really need to own their team and pass on all of the learnings. And I think our group, Matt, is really it's quite exciting, really, because whilst I suppose the diversity and the different businesses that we have, sometimes it feels a little complex, and it takes time to knit them together and make things applicable across the board. And that's just one of those things. We've actually got such a varied amount and wealth of experience because of the different type of personalities, the different types of leaderships. We've got people of all shapes and sizes, capabilities, ages. And I think the beauty of that gives us a massive library or massive toolkit of skills where actually, if we've got a great leader in Stein time with a certain skill set, we've almost got a skill set that we can share across the group. And I think that's one of my ambitions. That's one of my people ambitions, that actually let's share all the great practice, the best practice, all of the good stuff with the rest of the group, because that frees a lot of other people's time up to concentrate on doing the good stuff. So
So I guess my takeaway from from what you were just saying over the last few minutes there as well would be that HR isn't a function in itself. If you're like, well, okay, it is a function in itself, but the real skill from that function is teaching everybody in the business to be mini HR people. Because again, it's going to depend on business size, obviously. But when you talk about people not working for a company, they work for a great boss or a great leader. The reality is in bigger companies, some of the people lower down the rung are not going to get to have the day-to-day interaction or the FaceTime with the ultimate boss. So I guess it's about having all line managers being great bosses, all department heads being great bosses.
for
Even if
sure.
even if that's a department of two, then teaching that leadership skill, those HR skills, across the board. And HR is not just a room in an office, or a person in a department, but it's a culture, it's an ethos, it's a skill set that that everybody from the top down needs to learn and embrace to get maximum value and maximum productivity.
For sure, and it's only got benefits. I've never seen any downsides, because the benefits is all of this time that you're investing in our people, and you use the term every rung of the ladder. Actually, you are building that ladder. You are almost protecting and mitigating risk for the business, because to be able to grow skills and develop skill sets with every level, you're almost getting the next level of management ready. So you're growing your own talent as you go. And there's not many businesses do that. A lot of businesses rely and connect with external applicants, or they only use agencies. And I mean, that's quite an interesting point, because a lot of businesses are relying on agencies just to go and get a person to fill a job. Let's just go and get a person. If they're a round peg or square hole, it doesn't matter. We're just going to shove them in there. And I think this group has been guilty of that, and we wonder. We're relying on somebody who doesn't know the business, doesn't know the group, doesn't know the team of people that these people are going to join, because actually it's really destructive to put the wrong personality in a team. And say for instance, we've built, because our business is growing, we've gone and sought more accountants, more bookkeepers, things like that. Now, when you've got such a close team, and a team who are working together, imagine the damage of putting the wrong personality in there. It slows the job down. It creates poor relationships, and you can't actually grow your business till you've got that complete team and got a group of objectives where you're all aligned and you can all work together. So by palming off these jobs that I suppose are HR jobs, you sometimes end up with the wrong fit. Don't get me wrong, recruitment agencies are very useful, but I haven't met a poor recruitment
At times,
agency.
let's caveat that.
Yeah, yeah. And they are very expensive. So I probably think if I had to quantify my last couple of wages, actually, have I paid for it? Well, yeah, because the direct hires, we haven't paid any agency costs with some of the people that we've employed. So it's not just about money, of course. It's about knitting together an environment, bringing fun, you know, making it a cool place to work. Um, I'll not go overboard on making it a cool place to work. Don't worry.
But and tell me then, because obviously we've been talking a lot about our group, and you've come from a bigger organisation as well before. But for the startup entrepreneurs listening to this, for the SME business owners, the one man bands, how small or how big do you need to start getting before HR becomes a consideration? And it's kind of a leading question because
Mm.
I know the answer to myself. I believe I know the answer. I think we've kind of already answered it over the last 20 minutes of talking. But are you ever too small to need to think about HR?
No, I think if you are a business that just wants to do a bit and stand still and, just plod along, no, you probably have made that assessment that you don't. But such as a startup, why bother starting anything else up if you don't want to grow, if you don't want to be the best, if you don't want to stake your place in the market? So even HR, I have quite a wide network of HR people who I've worked with, people who I've met through events, and they come in all different guises. So a person I know, she only works 1 day a week as HR because that's all she actually wants to do, and that's all the business that, can afford that she's working for. But actually, it doesn't matter how big your investment; at least you're investing. And if they're recognising people, that business with that HR person on one day a week, actually they're making good inroads. As the business develops, will that person's time become more and more? Yeah. So that's probably the other end of the scale. Right, to some businesses, I've worked for a business where a certain sector in logistics had 7 layers of HR, so all with different titles, and there was a true recognition for HR. So you've got to do what feels right. Of course, it's got to be a commercially viable option because you know HR people don't pay for themselves. They need paid out of profits and out of the organisation. So it would be foolish if you were a startup to overcommit, because above all, to stay in business, you've got to be commercially uh, viable, hasn't it? It's got to be a decision that you can meet. So
Well, that was number one on our values yesterday, wasn't it? We're here to make money.
absolutely, and do you know what? I've never worked for a business which hasn't had that as a priority. And the last business I worked for, um, I had a really bold figurehead, and it was Ken Morrison, who obviously is no longer with us. And no matter what job you did, there was some people that got caught up in these fancy job titles. He certainly reminded you your job as a salesperson we haven't got a job unless we're selling. And, that was something that I absolutely linked up with the organisation, put the operation on an equal level to the people side of the business, and understood right from the get-go that, do you know what? It can't just be all about people. It's all about bringing a balance with the commercial side of it and the people side of it. And sometimes we can't do all of the great stuff for the people because it's not a viable financial option. We want to be this cool place to work. We want to be the employer of choice. But as I've said to you, if somebody asks me to put a roller coaster in the middle of head office, I can't do it because it would be really good. We'd be the best employer in the UK and everybody would want to come and work here. But it wouldn't actually, be financially viable. And what is the value of that anyway? So, it's important not to get over caught up with that. It's got to really strike a balance with the commercial side of the business as well. So definitely key priority. People are instrumental to being able to make money. Happy workforce will produce better results. We know that. So it all has to blend.
Well, listen, I think that's probably a great place to wrap up. We've given a good bit of background to HR, the pros and cons and benefits and everything else. And I'm looking forward to coming back in this for future weeks and now getting into the nitty gritty of individual things. So I think for you guys listening, Kelly's going to put a nice framework of future episodes together, but we're going to talk about how to hire, how to fire, how to performance manage, how to get the best out of people. We'll talk about what's topical in the news at any particular time, if there is. I mean, this has been recorded at the beginning of January 2023, and it's only over the last, few weeks or month or so there's been some big layoffs, in the American tech companies, your Amazons, your Googles, your Apples, your Twitters, and what starts with the big boys always filters down to the small ones, and what happens in the US always happens in the UK, and I think 2023 is going to be a year of mass turmoil in the job market. I am setting my stake in the ground at the beginning of this year, and I'm more than happy to be proved wrong. But I think this year is going to provide some opportunities and challenges in equal measures for employers and employees. So looking forward to watching it all pan out, and looking forward to learning from the pro, Miss Kelly McGowan. So thank you very much for being here, Kelly. Not that you had any choice, but I'm sure it was a lot less painful than you thought it was going to be. And guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. As always, if you have been listening, you can watch the video versions over on YouTube. If you've been watching them on YouTube, you can see them without mine and Kelly's pretty face over on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast from. I am the Matt Haycox. That's TheMattHaycox on all things social. And I will look forward to seeing you on episode 2 of the HR Zone with me and Kelly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.